A mob boss just made the worst mistake of his life. He mocked Dean Martin's dead brother, expecting the famous crooner to smile and take it. What happened next became legendary in Las Vegas, and the mobster would spend the rest of his life regretting those words. This is the true story of the night Dean Martin showed everyone what real power looks like. Las Vegas, July 1968. The Desert Inn was electric. High rollers throwing money around, celebrities everywhere, and Dean Martin about to take the stage for his 11 p.m. show. Just another Saturday night in Sin City, right? Wrong, because sitting front row was Vinnie Martello, a Chicago mob boss who controlled unions, gambling operations, and had his hands in everything from restaurants to construction. Vinnie was in Vegas for business, the kind that couldn't be discussed over phones, but he also wanted to be seen. Power meant nothing if people didn't know you had it.
Dean knew exactly who Vinnie was. Everyone in Vegas knew. You couldn't work in that town without knowing who controlled what, who to avoid, who to respect, and who to fear. But Dean had always kept his distance from these men. He performed in their casinos, took their money, but he didn't socialize, didn't owe favors, didn't want to be in their debt. Frank Sinatra had complicated relationships with mob guys. Sammy Davis Jr. borrowed money from them. But Dean stayed clean, stayed professional, stayed separate.
Until tonight. Dean was in his dressing room doing his pre-show routine when someone knocked. A man in an expensive suit entered, one of Vinnie's guys. Mr. Martello would like to say hello before the show. Dean put down his drink. Tell Mr. Martello I appreciate it, but I'm preparing. I'll see him after the show. The man's expression didn't change. He's in the front row. He'd like to see you now. It wasn't a request. When men like Vinnie Martello sent their people to fetch you, you either went or you made an enemy. Dean stood up. 5 minutes. That's all I have.
He followed the associate backstage, past the curtain, into a hallway near the showroom floor. Vinnie was waiting, smoking a cigar, surrounded by 4 men who looked like they'd been hired specifically to intimidate people. "Dean Martin," Vinnie's voice boomed. He was short, thick around the middle, with slicked-back hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. "The King of Vegas. I wanted to say hello before your show." Dean shook his hand. Vinnie's grip was too firm, the grip of a man who needed to prove something. "Mr. Martello, good to see you."
"Vinnie. Call me Vinnie. We're both Italian boys, right? From the old neighborhood. Well, different neighborhoods, but you know what I mean." "Sure. I heard your show is great. Wanted to see it myself. Brought some associates. We're looking forward to it." "I appreciate that." Vinnie took a puff of his cigar, and here's where things changed. "You know, I knew your family back in the day, in Steubenville. Your old man had that barber shop. My uncle used to go there. Said he was a good man, hard worker, immigrant values, you know?" Dean's face stayed neutral. "He was. And you had a brother, right? Older brother. What was his name?" Something cold moved through Dean's chest. "Bill. We called him Bill." "Bill, right. I heard he died a few years ago. Heart attack." "That's right. Now here's what you need to understand. Dean's older brother Bill had died 3 years earlier, in 1965, heart attack at just 56 years old. Dean had been devastated, but kept his grief private. Family was private. But in Vegas, information traveled, and certain people paid attention.
Vinnie shook his head sympathetically, but his eyes were calculating, watching Dean's reaction. That's tough. Losing family, it's the worst thing. How old was he? 56. 56, that's young. Way too young. Vinnie paused. You know what probably did it? Stress. I bet he was stressed, trying to keep up with his famous little brother. That'll kill a man, living in someone else's shadow, never quite measuring up. Dean went very still.
Vinnie continued, either not noticing or not caring. I mean, here you are, big star, making millions on TV, in the movies, playing Vegas, and there's Bill, probably working some regular job, wondering why he didn't get the talent, why you got all the luck. That kind of resentment eats at you, literally eats at your heart until it stops. One of Vinnie's associates actually chuckled. The others stayed silent, watching. Dean looked at Vinnie, really looked at him, and Vinnie must have seen something in Dean's eyes because his smile faltered for just a second. "That's a terrible thing to say," Dean said quietly. "What? I'm just being honest. That's probably what happened." "No, you're being cruel. There's a difference." Vinnie's smile came back, but harder now. "Cruel? I'm just stating facts. You're making jokes about my dead brother in front of strangers, suggesting he died because of jealousy or resentment when you didn't know him, never met him, have no idea what kind of man he was. Hey, I'm just saying." "I know what you're saying, and I'm telling you to stop." The hallway went completely silent. You didn't tell Vinnie Martello to stop doing anything. Vinnie's face reddened. "You've got some nerve, Martin. You know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are." "Then you know you don't talk to me like that." "I'll talk to you however I need to when you're disrespecting my brother's memory." Vinnie stepped closer. They were face to face now. Dean could smell the cigar smoke on his breath, could see the anger burning in his eyes. "Your brother was nobody, a nothing. He died a nobody. The only reason anyone even knows he existed is because of you, and even that didn't help him. He still died broke and forgotten." Dean's hands clenched into fists. Every instinct told him to swing, to punch this man in the face, to make him pay. But Dean didn't move. He just stood there, completely still, his face calm, his voice even quieter than before. "Mr. Martello, I'm going to give you a chance right now, a chance to apologize, to take back what you said, to show that you have even a shred of decency." "I don't apologize." "I know you don't, but you're going to tonight, or you're going to regret it." Vinnie laughed. "Regret it? What are you gonna do? You're a singer, an entertainer. You think you can threaten me?" "I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. If you don't apologize right now, I'm gonna walk onto that stage and tell the 300 people in that showroom exactly what you just said. I'm going to tell them that Vincent Martello from Chicago made jokes about my dead brother, suggested he died from jealousy, mocked his memory. So what? Nobody cares. Everyone will care, because I'll make them care. I'll tell them what kind of man you are, what kind of person mocks someone's dead family member. And then I'll tell them that you're sitting front row. I'll point you out, make sure everyone sees your face." Vinnie's smile disappeared. "You wouldn't dare. Try me. You've got about 30 seconds to apologize, or I'm walking onto that stage. You do that, you're making an enemy. A dangerous enemy. I already have. The question is whether you're smart enough to fix it." They stared at each other. Vinnie's associates looked at each other nervously. This wasn't how things usually went. People didn't stand up to Vinnie, didn't threaten him back, didn't call his bluff. Finally, Vinnie spoke, his voice tight and forced. "I apologize for my comments about your brother. Say his name." "What?" "Say his name, not your brother, his name." Vinnie's jaw clenched. "I apologize for my comments about Bill. And you were wrong to say what you said. I was wrong to say what I said." Dean nodded. "Good. Now you're going to sit in that showroom. You're going to watch my show, and you're going to sit there quietly. No comments, no jokes, no disrespect. Can you do that?" "I can do whatever I want." "Can you do that?" Dean's voice never rose, but something in his tone made Vinnie stop. "Fine, I'll behave." "Good. Enjoy the show." Dean walked away, back toward his dressing room. Behind him, he could hear Vinnie's associates talking in low, tense voices. In his dressing room, Dean's hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage, pure white-hot rage that he'd kept contained while facing Vinnie down. His stage manager knocked. 5 minutes, Dean. Dean took a deep breath, let it out slowly, pushed the anger down, locked it away. He had a show to do. 300 people expecting to be entertained. He couldn't bring this darkness onto the stage with him. He walked to the wings, heard the band playing his intro music, heard the announcer. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Desert Inn is proud to present Dean Martin." The curtain opened, the spotlight hit him, and Dean walked onto that stage with a smile on his face like nothing had happened. For the next 90 minutes, Dean was perfect. He sang every song flawlessly, told jokes that had the audience howling, charmed every single person in that room, except Vinnie Martello, who sat in the front row with his arms crossed, stone-faced, looking like he wanted to kill someone. Dean noticed, but didn't acknowledge him, didn't make eye contact, didn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd gotten under his skin. After the show, Dean went straight to his dressing room. His manager was waiting, looking worried. "Dean, there's a problem. Vincent Martello is telling people you disrespected him, that you threatened him. His associates are spreading it around the casino. This could get ugly." Dean poured himself a drink. "Let it get ugly. I don't care." "Dean, this is Vinnie Martello. He's not some drunk tourist. He's connected. He's dangerous. You can't just—" "I can and I did. He made jokes about Bill, about my brother. Nobody does that. I don't care who they are. But no buts. I'm not apologizing. I'm not backing down. If Vinnie wants a war, he can have one. But I'm not letting anyone mock my brother's memory. Not for any reason, not from anyone." Now here's what you need to understand about Bill. He'd been 7 years older than Dean, had taken care of him when they were kids, taught him how to box, how to stand up to bullies, how to be a man. Bill had worked in the steel mills, had a regular job, a regular life, no fame, no fortune, just a steady paycheck and a family he loved. When Dean got into show business, Bill had been proud, never jealous, never resentful, just happy for his little brother. They'd stayed close. Dean had helped Bill financially when he could, made sure Bill's kids got good educations, been there for family gatherings whenever his schedule allowed. And when Bill died, Dean had been devastated, had cried more than he'd cried in his adult life, had felt a hole in his heart that never quite healed. So when Vinnie Martello made jokes about Bill being jealous, about Bill dying from living in Dean's shadow, it was the worst possible thing he could have said. The next morning, Dean got a call from Frank Sinatra. "Dean, what the hell happened last night?" "Who told you?" "Everyone's telling me. The story's all over Vegas. You stood up to Vinnie Martello. Are you crazy? He made jokes about Bill." "About Bill? Your brother?" "Yeah." "What did he say?" Dean told him everything. When he finished, Frank said, "That son of a... I would have killed him. I thought about it." "But you didn't. You just made him apologize. Dean, that might have been worse for him. Vinnie doesn't apologize to anyone, ever. You made him do it in front of his guys. He's not going to forget that. I don't care if he forgets it or not." 2 days later, a well-dressed man Dean had never met showed up at his house. "Mr. Martin, my name is Anthony Cerno. I'm from New York. I'm here on behalf of certain people who are concerned about the situation between you and Mr. Martello." Dean didn't invite him in, just stood in the doorway. "What situation?" "The confrontation at the Desert Inn, the words that were exchanged, the apology that was extracted." "Extracted? I asked for an apology. He gave one. That's it. Mr. Martello feels he was coerced, that you threatened him with public humiliation if he didn't comply."
I gave him a choice. He chose to apologize rather than be embarrassed. That's not coercion. That's consequences. Cerno smiled slightly. "Mr. Martin, I understand your position, and between you and me, I think Mr. Martello was out of line. What he said about your brother, that was disrespectful, wrong. But you need to understand something. Men like Vinnie don't apologize. When they do, it costs them, makes them look weak, makes other people think they can be pushed around. That's not my problem. It is your problem when Vinnie decides to make you pay for embarrassing him." Dean met Cerno's eyes.
Is that a threat? It's a warning from people who'd rather not see this escalate, who'd rather not see someone get hurt over something that should have stayed private. It was private until Vinnie made it public by bringing it up in front of his associates, by making jokes in a hallway where anyone could hear. He made it public. I just responded. They talked for a few more minutes. Eventually, Dean agreed to let it go on one condition. Vinnie never mentions his brother again, never talks about his family, never makes jokes about people he's lost. Cerno agreed to convey the terms. Here's where the story gets really interesting. 6 months later, Vinnie was back in Vegas. Dean was having dinner at the Stardust with Sammy Davis Jr. and Joey Bishop when a waiter came over. "Mr. Martin, there's a gentleman who'd like to speak with you, Mr. Martello." The table went quiet. Dean stood up. "I'll be right back." He followed the waiter to a private booth. Vinnie sat alone, looking older, tired. "Dean, thanks for coming over." Dean didn't sit. "What do you want, Vinnie?" "To apologize, properly. Not because someone made me, because I want to." Dean studied him, looking for the angle. "Why?" "Because I've thought about what happened, about what I said, and I was wrong, really wrong." Vinnie looked up at Dean. "I lost a brother, too, long time ago, younger brother, got killed in a robbery. And when he died, I felt like part of me died with him, like there was this hole that could never be filled. And people said stupid things, insensitive things, and it made me want to hurt them." Vinnie paused. "That's probably how you felt when I said what I said, and I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." Dean sat down. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been thinking about legacy, about what I leave behind, and I don't want to be remembered as the guy who mocked a dead man, who was cruel for no reason, who used power to hurt people instead of help them." They talked for a while. Dean told him about Bill, about who he really was, a good man, the best man Dean ever knew. Worked hard, took care of his family, never asked for anything, never complained. And when Dean got successful, Bill was genuinely happy. No jealousy, no resentment, just pride in his little brother. When Dean finished, Vinnie said, "I understand, and I'm sorry, not just for what I said, but for making you defend him against something that should never have been said in the first place." Dean extended his hand. Apology accepted. Years later, when Vincent Martello died in 1982, Dean received a letter that had been written before Vinnie's death, with instructions to mail it after he passed. In it, Vinnie thanked Dean for that night at the Desert Inn, for standing up to him, for showing him what real strength looks like. He wrote that it wasn't power or intimidation, it was having principles and defending them no matter the cost. He said that watching Dean, learning from him, helped him find some decency before the end. The letter ended, "Your brother Bill would be proud of you, not just for your success, but for the man you are. Thank you for defending his memory. Thank you for teaching me about honor." That night, Dean took out an old photo of Bill, standing in front of his father's barber shop in Steubenville, smiling at the camera. Young, healthy, alive. "I defended you, Bill," Dean said to the photo. "When someone tried to disrespect your memory, when someone said terrible things, I stood up for you the way you always stood up for me." Dean Martin's daughter, Dina, said years later, "My father never got over losing Uncle Bill, never stopped missing him, never stopped thinking about him. And when someone disrespected Uncle Bill's memory, my father became a different person, still calm, still controlled, but absolutely immovable. Nothing mattered more than protecting the people he loved, and that included protecting their memory after they were gone." That's the real story. Not just that Dean Martin stood up to a mob boss, though he did. Not just that he forced an apology from a dangerous man, though he did that too. But the Dean loved his brother so much that no threat, no danger, no consequence could stop him from defending Bill's memory. That's love. Pure, fierce, uncompromising love. The kind that doesn't fade when someone dies. The kind that lasts forever. The kind that makes you brave when you need to be. Dean Martin had that kind of love for his brother Bill. And nothing, not mob bosses, not fear, not self-preservation, could make him betray it. That's real strength. Not the kind that comes from muscles or weapons or power, but the kind that comes from love, from principle, from knowing who you are and what you stand for. When Dean Martin died in 1995, his family found dozens of photos of Bill in his home, in his office, in his bedroom, on his refrigerator. He never stopped loving his brother, never stopped protecting his memory, never stopped being the little brother who looked up to Bill his entire life. That's Dean Martin. That's his legacy. That's why we still tell his stories, because he showed us how to love, how to be loyal, how to defend the people that matter most, even when they're gone. Especially when they're gone.